Findings and recommendations in Auditor General's reports, says Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition.
An appeal from NUCS for the president to get members of UTAG to return to the classroom.
National Environmental Health Officers Alliance refused to work over inadequate resources since COVID-19 broke out.
A study shows 25% of youth between ages 10 and 19 suffer from mental illness.
And in DR Congo to make sign language official while begging is banned on the streets of Lagos.
This is News Hour coming to you live from GTV News and GTV. Good evening, I'm Siyoko Kwakutre.
I am Shali, and I'm Robert Frimpong Manso will translate the news into sign language.
The news headlines is sponsored by Manchi Biscuits, Munch into Happiness.
Straight to our first story. The National Union of Ghana Students is calling on President Akufo-Addo to intervene and resolve the seeming dead end on the part of the University Teachers Association of Ghana to enable the teachers return to the classrooms.
Interacting with President Akufo-Addo at the Jubilee House in Accra, the leadership of the students' body commended the government for stepping in for the teachers to suspend their strike action for negotiation.
Student leadership says the entrenched positions by both parties in the impasse is not helping matters. So, the leadership of the National Union of Ghana Students, NUCS, was at the seat of government to introduce themselves to the president as new executives of the student body for the next 1 year. Up for discussion was the increase in hostel fees, delays in visa interview appointment for Ghanaian students wishing to study abroad, especially in the U.S., mass failure of teacher trainees in their licensure exams, and renovation of NUCS offices and permanent accommodation for national executives, among others. The NUCS leadership want the mass failure in recent licensure exams be investigated, among other matters.
We commend our minister and then all other government agencies in their ability to get UTAG to return to negotiations, because this was a matter that was really affecting Ghanaian students. But at the end of the day, we would still plead with both parties to take away all forms of entrenched positions, such that the negotiation processes will not be prolonged or delayed. About a week ago, we hit with a mass failure of our colleague teacher trainees who sat for their licensure exams. This has come as a very shock to us, and we will call on you to help us have a probe in it.
Education Minister Dr. Yoduchum commented on the mass licensure exam failure.
President, the National Teaching Council administers exams to teacher trainees before they become teachers. The last one that they did, a report came to me that students didn't do well. They brought me sample responses. And Mr. President, it's important that we hold ourselves accountable to a certain standard. That if you want to teach, we need to help you to really have the requisite skills to teach.
President Akufo-Addo told the student body that all efforts will be made to resolve the UTAG government impasse amicably.
I think all of us are happy that the University Teachers Association have agreed, after some long drawn-out negotiations, to suspend the strike that they had and go back to the negotiating table. Well, I'm hoping very much that some strong binding arrangement will be finally agreed on by the parties. There's a roadmap that has been established, and hopefully both parties will make sure that this roadmap is carefully implemented. It's in the interest of all of us to make sure that there's no disruption to academic work in our tertiary institutions.
Also at the Jubilee House was Egypt's outgoing ambassador to Ghana, Mr. Ima Hana, to bid goodbye to President Akufo-Addo. The Egyptian diplomat is leaving Accra after a 3-year duty tour, which led to the deepening of bilateral relations between Accra and Cairo.
The Accra High Court has struck out a suit filed by the National Labour Commission against the University Teachers Association of Ghana on a strike action. The judge, Justice Frank Roxon, struck out the case after it was withdrawn by the NLC. Counsel for the NLC informed the court that the NLC had decided to discontinue the case. Mr. Gyakie said the discontinuance of the case was subject to UTAG calling off its 3-week strike per memorandum of understanding between the government and UTAG.
Counsel for UTAG, Mr. Kwesi Kelly, the latter said UTAG and government met on Wednesday, August 18, 2021 and agreed to resolve their differences out of court. UTAG members have been on strike since the beginning of August 2021 because they want the government to restore the conditions of service agreed upon in 2012, which they said was far better than the current situation. The 2012 single spine package put entry-level lecturers on a pay of $2,084, while the current level puts lecturers' salaries around $900. A strike by UTAG has affected academic and some non-academic work at the various tertiary campuses, and government has since the strike been trying to reach a level ground with the striking lecturers to enable them to go back to the classroom, but to no avail.
The Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition wants the president to take decisive steps in tackling corruption in the country. Interacting with President Akufo-Addo at the seat of government, the chairman of the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition, Nana Seibonso, appealed to the government to immediately act on the findings and recommendations in the report of the Auditor General for the period ending December 2020. The coalition says the Auditor General's report shows consistent mismanagement and abuse of public funds over the years, and government must pull the plug on this matter.
Jubilee House meeting forms part of government's effort to engage civil society organizations, CSOs, on matters of national concern. On the table were a number of issues, especially on corruption and how the CSOs can support in the fight. Nana Seibonso said the acting Auditor General must be given a substantive role to strengthen the fight against corruption. On the GMPC Aka Energy deal, Nana Seibonso expressed the determination of the group to help government fashion out a strategy to help government to achieve value for money.
Government must also demonstrate that there is a personal price to pay for corruption by speeding up the investigation and prosecution of corruption cases, as well as asset recovery of proceeds of corruption. However, we will have to be more radical in our efforts to achieve results in the short term if Ghana is to deliver a big blow against corruption.
President Akufo-Addo said the Auditor General's report will receive the necessary attention. On the confirmation of the appointment of the acting Auditor General, the President disclosed that his administration has initiated a process expected to lead to Mr. Johnson Akuamo-Asiedu's confirmation as a substantive Auditor General.
First of all, the position of the Auditor General. I think we're all aware of the circumstances in which the first Auditor, when I say the first Auditor General of my time, left office. I believe the one who succeeded him, who came to succeed him by natural order in the hierarchy there, has not demonstrated sufficient quality, independence of view. For instance, he's responsible for something that is unheard of in our history, the 12 statutory reports that have to be compiled and placed before Parliament in the year of Parliament. This is the first time it has ever been done. Even the much touted Auditor General before never managed to do it. This one has done it. I think that on the basis of the work that he has done and the independence with which he has gone around his work, if today efforts are made to confirm him, I believe should be done.
The President said his administration will continue to support institutions created by the Constitution to fight corruption.
We have a Ghana where people can raise and discuss these issues as much as possible and hopefully as dispassionate and as broad-based a manner as possible. And I, for one, am very, very thankful that we have arrived at this situation in Ghana, and I think that all of us have a responsibility to make sure that it continues, that the difficult exercise of trying to build democratic institutions and democratic values in poor countries, essentially our country is still a poor country, is something that we will continue to hold fast to, the commitment to do so.
The election of MMDCs, the state of the country's corruption fight, limitations on the 1992 constitution, among other issues, were also discussed.
The National Environmental Health Officers Alliance Ghana are on strike as a result of inadequate personal protective equipment, PPE, to work with. According to the National President of the Environmental Health Officers Alliance Ghana, Mr. Yao Akwalate, said since COVID-19 broke out in the country, they have worked with very limited resources, and attempts to engage stakeholders to come to their aid have not been successful.
It is true we have laid down our tools simply because at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, we were sidelined on the note that they are with the Ministry of Local Government. So only the Ministry of Health, Ghana Health Service staff were organized a trip on COVID-19. Executives sat down and took the concerns from the members across the country. And along the line, we wrote a letter to 4 ministries, namely the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, now the Ministry of Local Government Centralization and Rural Development, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry, the Office of the Head of Local Government Service. Then the last one was the committee, the Rapid Response Committee on COVID-19 at the Jubilee House. I was part of the team that distributed all these. And today is 19th of August 2021, and our letter was dated 20th May 2020. And no single person from all these 4 ministries and agencies called us that to even acknowledge receipt of that letter.
Mental illness among young people between the ages of 10 and 19 is on the increase, particularly in junior and senior high schools. From a research conducted, it came up that 25% of the youth suffer from mental disorder, while 1 out of every 4 school children attempt suicide. A lecturer at the psychology department at the University of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Dakwa, disclosed this in an interview in Kumasi and called for a concerted effort to tackle the issue with urgency.
There is an increase in the number of children in our educational institutions who try to take their lives, a situation that was not common in the past. The victims are between the ages of 10 and 19. Reasons assigned to this unfortunate situation include poverty among parents, particularly those in the lower and middle income countries. The challenge has been compounded by the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. Parents are finding it difficult to meet the needs of their wards. Mental health experts have called for the guidance and counseling units of educational institutions to intensify their efforts or educate the children against the situation. Sexual abuse on school campuses is also said to be on the rise. It is to avert this that the guidance and counseling coordinators met at the Prempeh College for a seminar on how to educate the children against such criminal conduct, which sometimes truncates the educational career of the children, while others end up taking their lives. A lecturer at the Department of Psychology at the University of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Dankwa, asked teachers to help address the challenge on school campuses. The Ashanti Regional Coordinator of Guidance and Counseling at the Ghana Education Service, Mr. Stephen Ofori, encouraged pupils who are sexually abused by their teachers to report to the authorities for disciplinary action to be taken. He mentioned, for instance, that at the Ejura Senior High School, teachers who abused some girls sexually have been disciplined.
It is stated clearly that no teacher, no GS staff, no personnel under GS has a right to touch any student in terms of sexual harassment, in terms of sexual molestation. So if the situation is reported to GS takes immediate action. So the challenge we have is that most of them tend to cover the issues. But when the issue is reported to us, GS takes action.
The Kwadasu Municipal Coordinator of Guidance and Counseling, Mr. Bribrira, said the COVID-19 pandemic has caused several economic crises among parents, reducing the ability to meet the demands of their wards on campus.
We move to the Upper West region, where farmers whose farms have been destroyed by floods in the region are appealing to the government to support them with seeds and fertilizer to enable them to replant their crops. Speaking to GBC News at Naduli, the farmers said life will be difficult for them if government does not come to their aid with inputs such as improved seeds and fertilizer so they can restore their farms.
Over 300 people are known to have been displaced by the floods which occurred a week ago in the region. The floods also destroyed the main Nadoli-Lora-Nandom highway and some feeder roads, making movement of people, goods and services difficult. The National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, says it relied on assembly members to provide information on the affected persons since it is still difficult to reach some of the areas. The regional minister, Dr. Hafiz Ben Saleh, handed over the items to the beneficiaries. The presiding member of Nadoli Kalio, Dambai, Osbet Salifu, who received the items on behalf of the beneficiaries, thanked the Regional Coordinating Council and NADMO for the gesture. He gave the assurance that the items will be given to the displaced persons. A 3-year-old farmer from Nadoli, Mr. Donatus Tay, is one of the farmers whose farm has been washed away.
I just applied fertilizer, which was scarce to get the night, and it started raining. So every fertilizer I applied was washed away. And my concern right now is how to struggle to get another quantity of fertilizer to apply to the crop.
The regional director of NADMO, Mr. Mustafa Ahmed, said most of the displaced are currently living with their relatives in the affected communities. The beneficiaries are from the Nadoli Kalio and the Defiama Busie Issa districts, which are the hardest hits.
A delegation from Sudan is in the country to study Ghana's standard procedures in mining. This is in view of the strides made in the sector, particularly in the artisanal small-scale mining sector and community mining initiative.
Ghana has over 20 large-scale mining companies and about 200 small-scale mining companies with 90 support service companies. The Sudanese delegation was led by the Minister of Minerals, Mr. Mohammed Bashir Abdallah Menawi, and accompanied by Ghana's Deputy Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Mr. George Mrikuduka. They held talks with officials of the University of Mines and Technology, UMAT, and Anglo-Indian Ashanti Iduaprim Mine at Takwa to learn more about mining in the country. At UMAT, the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Richard Kwesi Amankwa, said the university has the track record and capacity of training engineers for both mining and other allied industries.
We are saying, give us a chair of mineral exploration. Resource the chair with $360,000 a year for 5 years. We will explore 60 25-acre plots for you. If you give us more money, every month we will give you data on 2 25-acre concession plots. That is the university's contribution to small-scale mining. And we would demarcate this area so that the same Minerals Commission can relicense it to small-scale miners.
The delegation was also at the Dwapem mine, where the managing director, Mr. Samuel Boachipobi, took them through the operations, particularly their corporate social responsibility programs and projects. Mr. Adala Menawi of Sudan said important lessons have been learned and his country will collaborate with Ghana for their mutual benefits. He said students and personnel in the Sudanese mining industry will be sent to UMAT for training.
All in all, we had a very good experience. We had an expert from the people here. We had a lot of, views and procedures and arrangements to be taken or to be used here. We'll take that experience to our country.
Mr. George Mirkuduka indicated that sanitizing the mining industry is a priority of government and no effort will be spared in that direction.
Former President John Mahama says he is troubled about the economy's management. He accuses government of using propaganda to mislead the people, but says the reality of the lives of Ghanaians speaks volumes of the actual state of affairs. Mr. John Mahama was speaking at a radio station in Tamale as part of his one-day tour of the northern region.
President John Mahama's tour of the northern region is to thank the people in the region who voted for him and the NDC party during the 2020 general elections. His itinerary includes courtesy calls on some paramount chiefs as well as a visit to KiDi and the Gbiwa Palace to round off his tour. Mr. Mahama said the current government is blaming the harsh economic situation on COVID-19 pandemic. He expressed his doubt about the inflation and deficit figures, which he says in reality are not good.
The same people who say we don't eat inflation, today are telling you to look at inflation. You know, this kind of economic semantics, we've had it for too long. And the people are looking at the reality of their lives. You see, the thing about this government is it believes that propaganda can resolve everything. And so even when your life is deteriorating and things are hard, they tell you that, oh, your life is better. Today, this government is saying that your lives are better today than it was in the past. I mean, do you believe it? You sitting here, is your life better today than it was in 2016?
Mr. Mahama said Ghanaians, particularly the youth, are gradually losing faith and confidence in the democratic governance of the country because the real story is not being told.
A government comes and says, I'll build 350 new secondary schools, and on the basis of that you vote for them. Or a government comes and says, yet it's a come there, and that when I come I'm going to create jobs so that all of you have money in your pocket. And 5 years on, you're poorer than even before they came. You know, it says, I'm coming because we're going to create jobs for all the young people. And 5 years on, more young people are unemployed than ever before. These things, the net effect and the intangible impact is that it shakes the faith of people in the democratic, system that we have.
He also called for pragmatic measures to improve the lives of Ghanaians.
This is the time to engage our youth and say, these are the constraints. What can we do better? We need an agenda that reforms and is more radical in terms of changing the fortunes of the people of our country.
Of priority to the government is building a viable and sustainable mining industry, restoring Ghana's lost forest cover, and building efficient land administration. To this end, an 11-member advisory board has been inaugurated for the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources to spearhead this charge.
Comprising the sector minister and his two deputies, traditional authorities, private representatives, land and mineral experts, the 11-member board will provide a strategic plan and clear policy direction to support the ministry and its agencies to execute their mandate. The minister, Mr. Abu Jinapo, linked the importance of lands and natural resources to the socio-economic development of the country, emphasizing that the ministry carries the very soul of the country.
The issues we're having to deal with are very complicated. We have matters, a myriad of matters. We're talking about the mineral resources of our country, the exploitation, the sustainable exploitation of the mineral resources of our country, how to build the value chain of the mining industry here in Ghana, local content, issues of small-scale mining. We're very familiar with them. The matters of land, which is a very important issue to any nation, how to manage the lands of our country. The issues of efficient administration of land, how to acquire title, and so on and so forth. The first couple of our country. These are also matters before us. And these matters together, if you want, really go to the very survival of our country.
The vice chairman of the board, who is also the paramount chief of Asin Aburinchi traditional area, Ehunabubinana Prajinsem, said the board commits to supporting the ministry to meet its targets. Small-scale miners in the eastern region have raised concerns about how some government officials are taking advantage of the mining regulations to extort money from them. Speaking at a stakeholder meeting for small and large-scale miners at Obuoba village in the Kogi West municipality, they said such attitude would make it difficult to enforce the mining regulations to ensure sanity in the industry. Mr. Joshua Kwei-Sowa stated that the three institutions responsible for granting mining permits include the Mineral Commission, Water Resources Commission, and the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA. The Minerals Commission, he said, is mandated to ensure that mining companies in the country actively engage in corporate social activities. The Eastern Regional Director of the Environmental Protection Agency, Mr. Felix Adwotre, pointed out that the EPA is mandated to close down any mining company involved in either small or large-scale mining whose operations contradict the EPA rules and regulations. The Eastern Regional Minister, Mr. Seth Kwame Champong, assured the public of his outfit's readiness to arrest and prosecute miners who flout the mining regulations.